Hi, I'm Michael Senoff, founder and CEO of HardToFindSeminars.com. For the last 5 years, I've interviewed the world's best business and marketing minds. Now my challenge is to build the world's largest free resource for online, downloadable audio business interviews. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years, and today I'm going to show you the skills you need to survive. Tell me how this all came about.
Okay, well, let's go back a few years to the first thing that we did many years ago. We were teaching classes. We gave all the people going through our class at that time free help up until the time they had bought a business, and because of that, we had a lot of feedback, and the feedback basically was people were really afraid of the price, that they weren't getting the right value, or they're overpaying. And so I sat down, and over a period of a couple of years, I developed a mathematical equations called weighted values to come up with the value of a business. In fact, it worked so well that right from the day we started doing this 25, 30 years ago, the IRS and the Small Business Administration adopted our program. Of course, the IRS did because we were an IRS-approved seminar. IRS agents had to attend our class to get promoted and stuff like that, so it was interesting.
The IRS, how did that all come about?
I don't have any idea. I think they heard about it. In fact, I could probably spend an hour or so just showing you programs that have been changed with the IRS because of them attending our class, because they got an insight into what business owners were doing. Because I had to show buyers what the sellers were doing to keep them from getting shafted by the seller in the transaction. So the IRS agents enjoyed coming. Again, we'd have 3 or 4 in a class, and I still remember the one in Washington, D.C. when the guy showed up. I remember with his 3-piece pale blue suit on, sat in the front row, and every time he leaned forward, I could see his gun in his holster. And he had told me during break that he was not only with the IRS, but he was the head of their enforcement division. That was a good thing. So what happened is, up until working with you about a year ago, when you suggested that maybe I start working with buyers, because I had complained to you about the fact that in all years in Mexico, we had developed millions of dollars in investment dollars, and then when I sold out, I really didn't move too fast to get involved in business again. So I had these people calling me every month. Well, again, I had not worked with buyers before directly. The office had. And so going out and doing this, I spent a lot of time on the phone and in person talking to different people, trying to explain to them the subjective stuff that I had in my head. In other words, I'd been doing this for 50 years. I knew what I was doing. I knew all the details and what to look for. But I was having a hard time putting it across because even with 25 basic categories, I'm sure I didn't cover all 25 with everybody. But just taking a few of them and covering them took a lot of time, which means I bored them, because if you look at something like this, if I took all 25 and sat down with a new buyer and went through all 25, he'd be asleep by the time we got through 5. So what I did is I sat down and developed this program. And again, we're not using weighted values. I did not go into great mathematics. All we have basically is each of the 25 categories.
Can I ask you this for anyone who doesn't know? What is a weighted value? What does that mean?
I take the complete price that a business pays. I basically work the thing backwards, like re-engineering or taking something apart. What I did is I just worked the thing backwards and then took all the areas that made up business values, and then based on the importance in the total, we ended up with a weighted value. It's really very simple, but the only problem was trying to break the thing down, which took me a couple of years.
All right, so how is a buyer going to benefit from understanding this checklist?
Okay, they can do a better job of analyzing the business purchases, what I said on the sheet. But the key thing is, the average buyer does not know what they're really looking for. They don't know, on a scale of, say, 1 to 4, how important each one of those things is. What happens is when they get down to the end, and let's say they take all 25, they circle the different things there, add up the numbers, they'll then end up with a score. Now, one of the first persons that came back recently was a college professor, and he told me the business he was buying scored an 86. I said, that's great. He said, that's a 3.6 grade point average, so it's a B+. I said, I don't think we're going to be using grade point averages, but it was an 86. And again, the thing that's important, it gives them a chance to compare this number with other businesses they're looking at. So say I have an 86, I'm looking at a 70, I'm looking at a 40. And what we're hoping to do is get them away from the ones that don't score too well, because those aren't the businesses they want to buy. Also, from the standpoint, if they come to me and want me to get investors interested, they have to have a business that has a higher number, because when I'm out talking to the investors, there may be 3 or 4 different businesses that we're trying to provide investors for. In doing that, if somebody has an 86 and the other people are in the 70s, the 86 is going to go immediately. So we're getting a lot of benefit from it. But again, it's helping the people that are buying the companies, first of all, as to what they're looking for. Again, we don't really have to have the thing being a B or a C or anything like that. It's just a comparison of one business to another. Now, the other thing that's important, and I've talked to a few buyers about this, when they are out looking at a business and say the thing comes in at 70, well, it's very easy to go through the 25 categories and figure out what they can do with the seller to improve the value of this company. Again, it doesn't really mean you're increasing the value, but increase a possibility that the investors are going to invest, because the buyer wins if the investors come in, and so does the seller. If they have too low a number, the chance of them getting an investor either from us or anybody else is little or none. So it gives them a chance. I talked to them about it. They can go back category by category. Maybe on owner financing, there's no owner financing. There's 3 categories there. And if the owners are willing to come up with owner financing in those 3 categories, and they're willing to go to extreme, to the best, it's going to add a lot of value to the company.
All right, well, we're going to get to all those. Let's talk about how we're going to use this business evaluation program before we get into it.
Okay, well, basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use it as a teaching tool. In other words, when buyers first come in, instead of having me spend the first hour going through a lot of these different details, they get this first, they get to look at it, and then as we go on, we can go on with the different things. But so far, nobody I'm working with has had any problems analyzing or figuring out really what it says, or the plus or minuses. It's just like on the pricing we came up with years ago. Even if they didn't use it to price, it showed them in 25 categories what gave businesses value and what took it away. Now what they're looking at is, will this business qualify for an investor? In other words, will an investor $1 million up or more on this deal? And so that's what they're really looking for. They're looking for something with a high score that's going to enable them to interest investors in doing this.
Let's keep a goal in mind. What do we need, point-wise, for us to have a good chance of having an investor invest in the business?
There is no number I have in my mind. It's going to depend on what the buyers that are going to the investors are scoring at the time. In other words, an 86 may be good today. A couple of weeks from now, they may be all in the 90s, or it's going to be. All I'm saying is, as I go out, the investors are going to have this as a guide. And what the investor had before, he had a business plan. He looked at the business plan and said, God, I'll either put the money up or I won't. Now he has an additional thing. And I want to tell you something from the buyer's standpoint and the seller's. This is going to make it more difficult for them to get their business financed, or an investor to come in, because the investor, instead of just looking at 50 pages of whatever, he's going to be able to look at 25 different items that's going to tell him the good news and bad news of 25 categories of this business he's looking at. And he is going to be much better prepared to make this decision, and it behooves the buyer and the seller to do a better job of putting this together.
Right. Sounds like a great tool. Well, let's go through all 25 of them and expand on them a little bit for the benefit of both the buyer and the seller.
Okay, but just keep in mind, this is a very simple thing. Each one of the categories, when people are going through this, they just circle the plus number after each description that applies, add the 25 up, and they have a score, which is a number out of 100.
Okay. Hi, it's Michael Senoff with HardToFindSeminars.com. Thanks for watching this video. You know, many of my interviews last 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes even up to 2.5 hours long. They're actual mini seminars, and you've just listened to a short sample of just one of over 117 hours of exciting, hard-hitting, mind-blowing interviews on how to make money in direct mail, advertising, copywriting. I assure you, there is not a resource anywhere on the internet or on the planet that comes close to the free information I provide at HardToFindSeminars.com. So go right now to HardToFindSeminars.com and you'll have free access to 117 hours of audio interviews with typed word-for-word downloadable transcripts and downloadable MP3 files. Please browse some more of the videos or go right directly to HardToFindSeminars.com. Thanks for watching.